involved in any way?
I think the thing which and I'm proud to have been friends of his, Lord Edward Montague. He and Pitt Rivers and Wild Blood.
Yes.
It was a big case, and all over the papers and the Sunday papers, just the Telegraph and the Guardian. You'd have 3 pages of it, with all the details of everything that was said in court. And you know the story of it, do you?
Yes, very well. Yes.
With Wild Blood, who was a leading journalist, and he just got the job as the royal correspondent. He was the one that would give all the news about the Queen and the royal family. He just got that job. And they met in London, somewhere in the cruising area. The other one was a corporal, nurse. All the nurses in the RAF they had a lance corporal or a corporal. And he was about 22 or 3, and he was a corporal, he was gay. And they met, and they fell madly in love. They wrote each other love letters, which the corporal kept in his locker, in the barracks. And they met, and they were together for months. And they went to Lord Edward Montague's place, because Lord Edward was a friend of Pitt Rivers, you see. And Bewley, by the sea, went swimming in the nude.
Yeah.
And then what happens? Sergeants are very nosy and inquisitive, and like my mother has a slight suspicion I was gay. I think this sergeant must have had a slight suspicion about this corporal, and he searched his locker and found these letters.
Yeah.
That they'd written.
What about?
And then they say there's 2 of them. Can't remember the names, but these 2 corporals, there were two corporals, they're both gay, and they both had lovers, and they all went to the trial, but the police, the bastards, which they are, but they were in those days, they said, if you tell us everything, nothing will happen, you'll be okay. Which they had to, otherwise they'd have gone to prison as well.
Yeah. What was your relationship, I suppose, though, to...
I had a boyfriend at that time.
No, I didn't mean... Your relationship... Did you have any relationship to the campaign to change the law?
Oh, no.
And how did you get to know...
But let me just finish telling you. Yeah. That was many years ago. That was the 50, wasn't it? 53 or 57, I think it was. And the general public, they didn't like it. A lot of the general public didn't like it. They knew they didn't like homosexuality. They thought that was terrible. But at the same time, they didn't like the fact that that these 2 guys had told the story, and it's only those 3 that got punished, and they went to prison. And when they came out of prison, the 3 of them, together in London, they were all a bit scared. There was a whole crowd of people. Oh dear, they was a bit scared. But the people were... It struck me and always remembered me. They all cheered and clapped.
Yeah. Because
they sympathised. And that started it. But it took another 7 years after that. They had this committee, and the chairman, whose son was gay, by the way, the chairman of this committee was the Wolfenden Report, or I had studied that. 7 years before the Wolfenden Report said, it more or less came out with the bosom that homosexuality is not something you just, which Tony Blair said, which he was my hero, when he said before he was Prime Minister, homosexuality is not something you decide to be, it is just something you are.
Yeah, yeah.
And people accepted it. And that's when the law changed.
And you were reading about this at the time, I imagine.
Oh, every word.
And did you ever feel a personal impetus to be involved in anything that was happening?
We all talked about it, of course. We all read every bit, even several papers to read.
And did you sense at the time, because this would have been around the time you were most probably, you were in a relationship with Rodney.
That was before I married, yes. That was with Rodney, yeah.
You were,
That's when my wife had suspicion, because I was very into. She had a suspicion that I was, because this doctor was a friend of mine, a close friend of mine, as well as being a doctor, he was a friend of mine.
What doctor?
This doctor, Dr. Osmond Frank. He was the mayor of Maidenhead for 4 years running during the war. And he went through the Old Bailey, and the most famous QC at the time. Peter Rawlinson, forget his name, defended him brilliantly. And what happened was, this 17-year-old boy, the police had got hold of this. The police knew that he was gay. They'd seen him in a toilet, and they guessed that he was gay, knew that he was gay. They'd seen his Rolls Royce parked outside one of the local toilets. And they got this 17-year-old boy to give evidence that he had put his finger up his bum. And that's what doctors have to do. They do. If they've got something wrong with you, they put the finger and they can tell something. They can feel for something.
Prostate, usually.
But this QC, Sir Peter Rawlinson, I think was his name, he got him off. But the problem was, it was fairly certain that Dr. Osmond was gay.
But I'm most interested actually in you, in your stories, in your life.
I think George, Scout Commissioner, during that time, I think, when you were caught by the...
Oh, we haven't come to that, have we?
Well, I mean,
I was a senior.
That's the most part.
Yeah, another thing, as I say, the Scout thing was very much...
The most impact.
In those days, it was part of my life. And I felt so sorry for boys who were in a wheelchair, nothing wrong with their brain, right? They were just as bright and clever as any other boy, but they were completely disabled. Spina bifida, cerebral palsy, heart disease, spastic, all these things, in a wheelchair. So I managed to get 2 or 3 of them into a camp, you see, in a summer camp. Because they loved it. And the other boys loved it as well, but it didn't really work. Because it's not fair to the very able-bodied boys, because everything has to be to suit the boy in a wheelchair. You can't do long hikes, you can't do rough games. So when it comes to summer camp, I mean, they could take part in the Scout group and do all the knots and the bandages and the signaling and everything else that we used to do, you see, and enjoy it. And even referee the games. They'd be with the referee when they had a rough game. The boy in the wheelchair would be the referee. I'll take the score. And then they went every night, to Scout, just the same as all the other boys in the village did. Yeah. When it comes to summer camp, it didn't work. So I decided, it's no good one county. Fortunately, I couldn't find more than about 5, 10, 15 in the whole of the South Buck. 5 or 6 boys in wheelchairs. That's no good. We need about 40 to have different patrols. So we need 6 counties: Bucks, Berks, Perth, Hants, Herts and Oxford. 6 southern counties. And we got 40 kids. And they thoroughly enjoyed every minute. Raised enough money and run a camp. And each boy has a buddy. And the buddy has to dress and undress and help him in every way, which has to be done to a boy in a wheelchair, right? And wheel him around. So every boy had a buddy. So there were 40 boys in wheelchairs.
Yeah.
And 40 helpers.
Did anyone?
And we did this for 7 years. We did this for 7 years.
Yeah. During what period?
60, 70, 70s, 1970s.
And did anyone, when you were in the Scouts, when did you start being involved in the Scouts?
And I became a senior commissioner.
Okay.
And then I lost one of my boyfriends. I lost one. Well, they either get married or they find another boyfriend or they move away or something every now and again. So, you know, the 7-year itch with adult, with heterosexuals. It works in the gay life. It works in the gay life as well. Very often, a relationship would last about 7 years.
Yeah.
And then you decide mutually to part. and still stay friends. But you look for another boyfriend, and I was looking for another boyfriend.
Okay.
So this toilet in Slough was, if you live in a little village, which I was, Slough wasn't much smaller than a village itself. There's one toilet with 2 cubicles where you lock the door, the hole between the 2 cubicles, and if you find someone there, you didn't necessarily do anything. You passed notes between each other, and then you go out and met her. But there was an old guy in there. And he was about 10, 15 years older than me, and he stuck his cock through the hole, and I stuffed it up with paper. Just stuff it up. And carried on waiting for him to go, and reading the things on the wall, sometimes very funny. My mother made me a homosexual, and underneath was written, if I gave her the wool, would she make me one? Things to cheer you up and think, my God, at least I'm not the only one. There are others around.
Yeah. This was when.
And then 2 policemen were outside listening, and one of them gave the other one a lift up, just as he pushed the paper out with his cock and put his cock through the hole again. And I'm sitting there doing nothing. We were both arrested. I did nothing, absolutely nothing.
Was this the first time you were arrested or the second time? Or was this the second time?
The very first, only time.
And when was this?
The only time.
When was it?
Oh dear, I'll have to look in my diary, won't I? 19...
Well, it would be your...
Before
your
I was
books.
married, wasn't it?
So
No! Of course it
Your
wasn't.
book, yeah.
It was when I was married. My wife came to court with me. She came with me.
It was when you were married?
Oh yes. Oh yes. We married and had children. Already had children by then. Oh yes. Oh, I'll have to get my book. Where is it, love?
Wait, your book's here. Let me,
No, not that one. No, it's always on here. There's everything in here.
That book.
There's everything in here that I've ever done that of any consequence. Look, see, there's the year. Everything. Oh Lord, I'll have to look it up and tell you.
But this was the offence that is still on your record?
Yeah. Oh yes. Yeah, that would have been about 1970 somewhere. I can't. I'll have to find it.
Is this the same offence? Sorry, you might.
It'll be in there anyway. It'll all be in there.
Is this the same offence that you still have that you're campaigning against?
Yeah.
Well, I need like an index. There's no index. Well, I will find that later.
I think they got a copy of my old book, the old book.
But
You got one there. There's one there.
But there might be an index here.
There won't be there. No, the old one, love. Find the old one. It's in there. It's in there.
But would you be able
Find
to
the
find
old,
it?
a copy of the old. There's one there. Because I wrote the book on my computer and had it printed in Thailand, and it was a lot of errors and a lot of mistakes in it. And this one, see, this is the first one. That's the first one. In fact, it is a spare copy. You can have this one as well, then, because it's got it in here. Look.
This is quite interesting.
Yeah, you must have this one as well. Yeah, that's Mum and Dad. Look, that's so lovely. I love that picture.
It is nice.
And you will have. Yeah, you must have this as well. And that's where I grew up, little tiny country cottage. There's no other cottage within half a mile of that.
Yeah.
Right in the middle of the country. This is the first book I wrote. There's a lot of.
So you talk quite openly about your relationship with Rodney here.
Oh yes.
You were very much living in what I would describe as a sort of happy, content relationship.
Oh yes.
So what Why did you decide that you had to marry somebody? Was it purely for your mother that you did it, or was it
Not
just
only
to
mother,
maintain-
everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody. I didn't want people to know, the men who worked for me. I didn't want anybody to know I was gay. It was such a... The word is aberration.
Do you regret it now?
No. If you ask me, I don't think I've ever had any regrets. I've ever had any regrets, and nothing I've done that I've regretted. No, I don't think so. Regret? No. Never.
Did you ever have a sense when you were doing it that it was illegal, or that were you sort of ashamed of it in any way when you were in relationships with men or having sexual
Well,
relationships?
you gradually over the year come. The only, as I say, the only way you keep your sanity. If I'd have been somewhere where there were, I don't know, in the wilds of Yorkshire or somewhere like that, I think I would have gone mad and committed suicide probably.
Yeah.
It might have happened, because the most important thing was to meet someone else that was like yourself and chat. Which my first one was Stephen. I met Stephen. I've got another little story. I think I've told a story about this, but this is full of stories. I met this girl who wasn't a virgin. She'd had other boyfriends as well, and she admitted she wasn't a virgin. And it didn't work. And then I had decided at one time I would marry her, and then it didn't work. And I went perfectly legitimately into a toilet, and some guy was waving his cock at me or something, and then he came near me, and I was furious. I mean, I'd never experienced such a thing in a public toilet where I'd gone for a legitimate pee, and he ran out, and that started it. That started thinking. For this girl, it hadn't worked, and I'd enjoyed sex, male sex. I hadn't had any sex with any man at all whatsoever. No man whatsoever. Any man whatsoever. Had I ever had sex with other than boys, other boys, as I was another boy. It's just started going. And something made me go back to that same toilet about a week later, because I realised that I'd heard about it, I knew about it, and the word gay didn't exist. I don't know what word we used, but it was disgusting and horrible and terrible sort of thing to do. But nevertheless, I went back to that same toilet. Something made me go back to that when I wasn't busting for the pee. And there was Steve, my very first friend. We never touched each other, ever, sexually. Steve Gardner. Never touched, not Scott, Steve Gowing.
Yeah.
Steve.
Yeah.
I haven't heard from him, darling, for years now. He must be dead. He must be dead or dying. He's about 2 or 3 years younger than me. And we just talked. And it was wonderful. And we talked. And then we went back to his flat. And Rodney, my very first boyfriend, was his friend. They weren't. I forget why they were together. They were friends. I can't remember. But anyway, Rodney, who was only 17 at the time, fell in love with me. But just looking at me, going to talk with Steve. All we ever did was talk. We never touched each other. And that was it. Rodney was the first one.
Rodney was your first sexual
Rodney
relationship?
was the very first sex I'd ever had with another male, adult male.
Did you ever have a one-night stand or anything like that, or one night of sex?
I told you, lots.
Lots.
And Rodney had this little book, and he said, "There, look."
Oh, I see. But you never.
Rodney didn't.
Yeah.
And then, of course, he went did his national service in National service.
Yeah.
40.
And he was in.
50,
so he was in the military.
He joined the army.
Yeah.
And he came home one night in tears, And some of the guys had suspected a little bit. He wasn't effeminate in any way, but he didn't talk about girls. He didn't have a girlfriend, and the others did. And they pulled his leg. And he came home and a little bit emotional with me. I said, darling, look, the best thing to do, I think, is to... Oh yeah, one of them said, come on, Rod, let's have your bum. And I said, and he didn't even hardly know what they meant. I said, next time they do it, just come on then. And he did. He just back. Don't let them know you're gay anyway. But just say, come on then. And that's how he got over it. I think got over it. But he didn't enjoy it. He didn't enjoy his national service at all. No.
And you,
we were as much in love as it's possible for two people to be.
Yeah.
We never, neither of us. Only me, occasionally when he was away, of course. I used to be well, we didn't use the
where
word
would you find these
unfaithful.
partners? Just
Yeah.
where would you find the partners that you would?
But it was nothing more than just we used to go to gay parties and things, you see. And in those days, if you went to London, you could go to a gay bar, and you had to decide which one you were going to. There was about 3 or 4 people in there that had parties back at their house, and you just had to decide which one you'd go to. You had so much choice you could go to. And we had hundreds of gay friends. Hundreds of gay friends. Mostly in London, lived in London.
Would you have liked to have been out in this time? Because it seems like you were
It was
living a very
impossible.
gay lifestyle. Would you have liked
You never
to?
thought about it.
You never even thought about it?
It wasn't possible.
Was anybody you know?
It wasn't possible because what has happened to make it? The Lord Edward, that happened. That started it. That Lord Edward Montague case, that started it. Thinking that there are people like this, and it's wrong that they should be punished. And Tony Blair, he was the one. Long before he was Prime Minister, he stood up and said, what he said, homosexuality is not something it's designed to be. And then gradually, didn't we? The very first thing was if you were gay, you could go back. It was lawful to go back in private, 2 only, and go to bed together. But if there were 3, and sometimes the police would have a suspicion, because the police were it was a feather in their cap to get a conviction. And they were after convictions, and they'd get some idea that there were 2 or 3, and if there were 3 of you, they'd break the door down and arrest all 3. That was illegal. But you could, 1960, 67 or something, it was permissible for 2 gay guys to go in to have sex in private together. That was the very start of it. But then,
did you because you're obviously a successful business person and living a gay life, were you ever worried about blackmail? And did you know people who were blackmailed?
I don't. Never come across it. No.
You never noted anyone who was,
I heard about it. It was possible. It was possible. Very easy to do, I would think.
Were you not worried?
But another gay person would never do that, in my experience.
No. Were you worried about being blackmailed by?
They could have done. Yeah. They could have blackmailed me, and I probably would have paid, because it was.
But were you worried, George?
No. I was just very careful that you only went to. I never went cruising to gay places, and I very rarely went to toilets. Very rarely. We went to gay bars, which was the Ship in Windsor. And I said to my dad, who was a guardsman stationed in Windsor during the war, or what was then. I said, I'm going to have a drink in Windsor tonight. And which pub you go? Oh yes. He said. Oh yeah. I said, I'm going to. Don't go to the Ship then, will you, son? Because he knew that's where, he didn't suspect me or anything. He said, don't go to the Ship. If that's for the guardsmen who were after a bit of money and were probably a little bit gay themselves, were what we call, they weren't really male prostitutes, but they were what we called money boys. They were after a few bob, a few free drinks, and a bit of sex.
Did you ever use a
And he
money
said,
boy
"Don't go
yourself?
there, will you, Dad?" I don't. Oh no, wouldn't. I don't. What's that? What's wrong with that, Dad?
Did you ever use
So
a?
they
Did you
didn't
ever sleep with a money boy yourself?
We never did. No, because they were male prostitutes. You see, we never had anything to do with them. We ostracised
George,
them.
I think
We ostracised
when you
them.
came back from the war, you
No,
went to the Piccadilly Circus.
Never. I've never ever paid.
Did you give the money? I think.
Well, in
Remember
Thailand.
that? No, sorry.
In Thailand.
When you came back from your war.
You buy them drinks and you buy them a meal.
No.
And you sometimes give
No,
them
not
give them
Thailand.
$100. But
Even
that's
referring
not
to
really
the
the same
war.
as.
George, just a second. When you came back from your Rhodesia, because you start having the kind of gay experience and you felt that you like,
No, I wanted to get married.
but you feel like to have, I think you went into there and then you found someone, didn't you?
In Piccadilly Circus?
Did you? And then the guy with the coat.
Oh,
that taking-
yes.
Tell me that
I told a
experience.
lie, didn't I?
Yeah, you were.
I did go with a red boy.
Okay.
I did. I've forgotten, love.
Okay. You got
I told him everything. I went up to London,
what age?
met this guy, who was about 10 years younger than me, that's all. He probably wasn't gay, but he was a male prostitute, same as you get female prostitutes. And we went back to stay, I could afford in those few, but we went and stayed in a little hotel, slept with him. I don't know what we did, what sort of sex we had or what we did. And then in the morning, I had a coat, which wasn't all that expensive, but it was cold, and he hadn't got a coat. He said he wanted cigarettes. Right? He was going to leave. What he wanted to do was leave, but I didn't. I'd already sort of slightly fell in love with him that first night, the first guy I'd ever slept with. And I trusted him, and he said, "Can I wear your coat and I'll go and get the cigarettes?" And that was it. And I gave him the money for the cigarettes and let him wear my coat, and that was it. He's gone.
Did you also pay him for the sexual relations, or?
No, that was it. It broke my. It
small
really upset me because nobody likes to be conned, do they? Nobody likes to be conned. Anyway, I knew where he used to go, and I knew I could find him again. Eventually, I found him again.
Yeah.
Right? I chatted to him, and I said, "You are a sod." I said I was so pleased. I said, we could have stayed together for a long time. And he testing me, and he was hard up. Could I let him have some money? He said, "Okay, I'll give you a £5." So I took a £5 note out of my wallet and I tore it in half. And I gave him half of it. And I said, "Now, I've got to go now, but next time I see you, I'll give you the other half." And I did, and I saw him, and I thought about it and decided what to do. And I met him, I saw him, I gave him the other £5, I said bye-bye.
Were you seeking
Never want to
something
see
more
you again.
meaningful at that
I
time?
gave him the other half.
Were you seeking something more meaningful, like a relationship at that time then?
I would have had a relationship with him,
Yeah.
but as
You
the
weren't
very first man that I'd ever wanted to see and sleep with every night if I could.
Mm.
And from then I stayed clear of rent boys and never got anywhere near any of them again. That was the only one. I'd forgotten about that, love.
Thank you for teasing that out. I need to do it again. I think I must have a weak bladder somehow. I had too much. I've been drinking water for about 2 hours. I'll be back in a second.
Yeah, I've completely forgotten about that, hadn't I?